Hi everybody and welcome to session 4. The topic today is boastings and warnings, where we're looking at the passage from scripture from James chapter 4 verse 13 all the way to chapter 5 verse 6. I hope you take the time to read it, just like you've been reading through all the scripture in the preceding sessions that we've run. You know, it's a bit of a warning, this passage, about what not to do. James kind of highlights things in this passage which I think we need to take note of. It comes from the question of what we hold on to reflects how we live our life, and in turn, how we interact with others. You know, the first part of this whole passage talks about, he actually calls out people just like you and me. The key verse for today is found in chapter 4, verses 13 and 14, where it says, "Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow, we will go into such and such a town and spend a year there and trade and make a profit. Yet you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? For you are a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes." You know, like many of us, we make our plans. Like many of us, we have things and obligations we have to meet. We go out there. Some of you run your own business. You go out there, you plan, you scheme, you strategize, all to make money. A lot of us have families. We need to kind of budget. We need to plan. God says there's nothing wrong. In the book of James, it says there's nothing wrong with all of that. But when we have to realize that our life, it says in verse 14, is like a mist. It's fleeting. It's like this mist that you spray it and it vanishes in one moment. The problem that we have sometimes is that we hold on to our plans too tightly. I think James points that out, that there is no room when we do that for allow God to intervene in any of our plans. And when that happens, when we rely on ourselves, when we become proud and arrogant about our own accomplishments, it says in James 5 verse 16, "As it is, when we do that, you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil." You know, there's a cultural problem that we all have that makes us think that we are in more control than what we are. We can do whatever we want to do. You know, one of the things that's happening over the pandemic is that we've realized just how difficult this season's been for us. And I think one of the main reasons why we felt that way is because we haven't had everything in control. We've been going in and out of lockdowns and easing and lockdowns again. And we've realized that the plans that we make are always changing, and it's difficult. And we've realized more and more that we are not in control and God is. You know, I love the verse in Proverbs 19 verse 21 where it states that many are the plans in the mind of a man, but it is the purpose of the Lord that will stand. The second part of this passage goes into chapter 5, where James turns his attention to the rich. And it speaks about how holding on to your riches with the wrong attitude can actually shape the way in which we treat people. You know, people who have built their success and status and standing on material things. James has this to say to them in chapter 5, verses 1 to 2. He says, "Come now, you rich, weep and howl for the miseries that are coming upon you. Your riches have rotted and your garments are moth-eaten." Some really harsh words there, but it talks about how even our riches mean nothing in this world, because all it is going to be like garments that are going to be eaten by moths. How useless are our temporary things that we chase after in this world. And it goes on to further to say that as a result of all this, as a result of you chasing after all these material things in your life, the fractures it can cause in your relationships. In 5 verse 4 it says, "Behold, the wages of the laborers who mowed your fields, which you kept back by fraud, are crying out against you, and the cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord of hosts." Now, when we chase our own agenda, when we chase the things that matter to ourselves and not of God, it causes us to see people in a different light. You know, in God's kingdom, it's never meant to be a community of different social standings, of different people that just hang out and get treated in different ways. It was meant to be a picture of unity. It was meant to be a picture where social statuses are broken down, where status, power, or wealth doesn't influence the way we treat people. You know, in many ways, for all of us who are watching today, we all have a position of power and influence in our life, whether it be that we're a parent, maybe be our workplace, maybe just simply that we walk into a restaurant and we're the paying customer. Now, what do we do with that power? What do we do with what we have that God's entrusted us with? How do we treat people that we employ? How do we treat people who clean our office? How do we treat people who serve us food? I think the question that this passage is asking us is that how are we treating people that we have responsibility or have some sort of power over in our lives? Even as we go into our discussion, I would hope that you would talk about what you hold dearly to yourself and how that impacts you in your relationships, how that makes you see others that you're over, the people that you're in charge of, maybe you influence, maybe you have power and some responsibility over in your lives. Enjoy your discussion.